Okay, welcome very much. Welcome very much. It was the monitor was hidden behind the camera. Welcome to Conversation. Welcome to you in the audience, our guest now. And we're going to have a sort of a conversation about communications and other matters. But it's with a dear friend of mine from way back, and that being Paul Sladkus. And he will be familiar to people in the audience. He's been a guest of mine a number of times. And his program that has been carried for a long time, it's 25 years, as I understand. We're going to talk about it. It was been known as Good News Broadcasting. He's a really important person who's come out of the network television developments and is a wonderfully adept fellow at dealing with multimedia and so forth. And Paul, welcome so much to Conversations. It's so good to see you again.
Hi, Harold. How are you?
A little sidebar. We're going to talk on this program for 2 consecutive programs. We're going to try and get in depth into some things about communication and the human condition. So we're going to be doing this program, which will air on Tuesday. People will be watching that. And we're going to do another follow-up hour with you that will air on Wednesday. So we'll just put that out at the beginning. But Paul, share a little bit let's get your own credentials down a bit. You were in network television for quite a while. Give us a kind of, the 5-minute run on Paul Sladkus' background in terms of established television systems, and then we'll get talking about electronic communications and the human condition in a larger context. But your own background, if you would, share.
Okay, sure, Harold.
Yeah.
And thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here with you, and it's always a pleasure.
And you've always been in touch with me saying, let's give Harold a chance to say a couple of words.
And then
because you're used to interviewing other people.
I do. I've done 5,000 shows.
That many.
On
okay.
our Good News Planet. It's called .com. And I have been in the communications business industry for 38 years.
Congratulations.
And I love it. Yeah. And I was a fortunate guy because early on in my life, I was able to figure out what I wanted to do to a certain degree.
Right.
I guess I'll go way back, and probably the people have heard it who I've been on before, but I was given an opportunity. My mother, who was the librarian here at Temple Emmanuel in New York, gave me Reverend Norman Vincent Peale's book, The Art of Positive Thinking, back in junior high school and so on.
Okay, well, you've sure learned from that, I could tell you.
I have been a positive guy and thinking good thoughts about the people around me. I've had the opportunity to be the president of the class usually, and everybody is entitled to their own opinion. And, I'm very open-minded and do the best I can be to be non-judgmental. So I'm very happy to share the good news and to hear the good news and be happy for people doing what they do.
You don't want to hear much of the bad news.
No, I don't mind hearing their bad. It's everybody's entitled to their bad news. I don't mind. In fact, I'm very open to hear people's bad news because that's, first one, they trust you enough to share it with you. That's a very big honor for somebody to share their bad news. And 2, if there is any in small way that I'm able to suggest a different way to look at what's going on for them at that moment, and I could possibly be helpful.
Might solve a problem or 2.
Might help them, as people have for me.
Okay.
I am a human being that has his ups and downs like everyone else.
Now, you say Good News Broadcasting, you're changing Good News Planet. I think that's a good branding move for you on your part and everything. You've been going 25 years, as you say, in the business and that. But news, good news, and you're familiar with the old saw, if it bleeds, it leads. So that the wedding or the junior high school prom, which is really happy and everybody's happy and everybody goes home happy and there's nothing exciting happening, no car crashes or anything, doesn't tend to get into what we call news. Mostly the news is if it bleeds, it leads. If it creates tension within the society, then that's what is called news.
Well, I think that, everybody approaches media and how they utilize media to express their point, a movie, a book, or whatever so suits them to get a message out. And that's what, in essence, I see media being. For me, I, had this positive thinking. I was a musician since a little
you
boy.
Play sax, right?
I play saxophone and piano.
Right.
And so I've always loved show business.
Right.
My parents. My mother was a musician, a pianist, very good, and I never let her stop playing. She was so good. And so I was brought up in that kind of household that enjoyed entertainment, let's call it.
And also the culture.
And it was very cultural way.
And also intellectually curious about things, say, political and so forth, or not?
I'd
not
say
so much
less
political.
so.
You're less political
I'm
than
less
you
political
are
because
cultural.
I'm, in essence, a one world kind of guy. So that's a whole nother subject.
John Lennon.
I'm a John Lennonist.
Yeah,
and so I decided, I grew up in the shoe business, but as I tell people, I couldn't spell, and I went into show business. My family had a shoe store up in Tarrytown, up in Westchester.
Tarrytown, yeah. That's,
and I, being a musician, and learning, I guess, in my graduate study. So I went undergraduate to Quinnipiac University, they call it now, and then Fairfield University for a master's in communications.
Okay, where's Fairfield? New Jersey?
Fairfield, Connecticut.
Connecticut, okay, right, okay, yeah.
And I learned there the power of communications. That's where I learned your good friend about Marshall McLuhan and Buckminster Fuller and a lot of forward thinkers.
They were teaching Fuller at a communications college?
At my graduate school,
Fuller.
yes.
Yeah. Well, he was very much in the air back when we were younger, and you would have been in school. I guess
71.
70. That was the. We'll get into it maybe later in this program, but for my book, that was a time of qualitative transformation in the evolution of consciousness. Was about the year 1970. A lot of modeling shows that on both good news and bad news side of things. But that was a major transformation, and those are two of the leading people that were giving some understanding of what was going on and why that was such an important period. Yeah, Bobby Dylan picked it up by saying the times they are changing, and he had his finger right on the pulse of the zeitgeist. Yeah.
They're selling that piece of the words, the poetry, tomorrow in Sotheby's.
Are they really?
Yeah.
What he originally wrote?
Yeah.
He was brilliant. He was right on. And
I believe that's the song, yeah.
There was an awful lot going on then.
Yeah, and he's still playing.
you were into communication, including McLuhan.
Well, our school was mainly philosophical aspect of communications. It wasn't really a hands-on. In fact, I did the first TV show there at that facility at Fairfield University, which eventually became a public television station, I think it is now.
Okay.
So I was early on and wanted to actually create a program. But I learned there that people actually believe what they watch and they believe what they read. So my belief was then let's show them good things. If we're going to read stuff, and let's focus on the good stuff.
Norman Vincent Peale.
Let's focus on it. But the show actually that interested me, or one of the shows. But education needs to be also entertaining because it could put you to sleep if it doesn't.
It does put a lot of people to sleep, I think. Yeah.
I learned through, at that time, the show All in the Family was important for me to see. And actually, he was a Connecticut guy himself. And
Norman Lear?
Yes.
Yeah, he was brilliant.
And that show, you laughed with a bigot, you cried with a bigot, but you learned what a bigot was, and entertaining. And CBS had the guts and fortitude to put that on the air. And so that was a kind of a show that I thought was of interest to me.
You like comedy?
Comedy's my favorite thing. Comedy and music are my two number one things. I want to laugh,
good music,
and I want to listen, and everything else I don't necessarily want to deal with. I do, but I want to. If we all laugh together and we all play music or hug each other together, we don't have any time to do anything other.
Like stab each other in the back.
Like stab each other in the back.
Yeah, right.
All right. We're having fun.
Yeah.
Let's party.
Yeah, okay.
We're flying away in outer space right now.
Yeah, right.
So let's get real. We're already flying around. So
yeah, but you were understanding the implications of communication, which began, and it's worth mentioning that because people have been communicating. And I wonder if we could back up, or just bring it in. Apparently, the universe is synergetic. That is, it's the behavior of systems unpredicted by the sum of the parts through time. Things change in the evolutionary process, so that we're part of a universe that got started, now we know, 13.8 billion years ago. And Michio Kaku in Green, they say superstring theory says that we're probably part of multiple universes. We didn't have any inkling of that until just today. And that they were connected by wormholes. There's probably multiple universes, which makes it open to the possibility of being a closed system rather than an open system, as we always countered the second law of thermodynamics, that all systems move toward entropy to the limits of the system. So it's got to be an open book, a synergistic understanding of things. And then we have evolution developing 3.8 billion years ago out of material, so it can be understood materialistically without the mythic stories that we've created to give some sort of solace to the self-reflective consciousness that was characteristic of our species, I think probably uniquely, where we can take the measure of things and ask the large questions, what's it all about, coming up the hominoid line. And 200,000 years ago, our species appeared in the evolutionary pattern. And so it's 10,000 generations, and Isaac Asimov said in his life, and on a program I did with him, this is the defining revolution. I mean, generation. This very one. I think it was 1950 to 2050. This is the defining generation of a period of qualitative transformation that is characteristic of this time as a result of the effects of the extension of consciousness into technology and tools that was unique to us. And it reaches a point where, on the one hand, in terms of weapon systems, they reach species lethality. And most of the modeling, and they remain so. So that means if they're unleashed, it's the end of the entire species, which is a pretty big existential challenge. New. Even the Second World War, we weren't at that level. We couldn't do that with firebombing. We were impotent, gestating evolutionarily. And then on the other side, Fuller, and then there were others, Chardin and some others and so forth, Lovelock, Gaia. They said on the other side that on the adverse side, the good news side, Norman Vincent Peale, the good news side of that technological extension is the fact that we were, it's hard to even grasp, we were actually at the level of capability of providing life support for the whole of the human society and the ecology. We were transcending material scarcity as an ontologic reality, which had been characteristic of all of human history. That puts it into a big pattern, and the communications is one aspect of that total aspect of evolution reflected through extended human consciousness and its extension that brings us to this point of qualitative transformation. And I wonder what you think about that. I laid out a lot of thoughts. Can you see things
Sure
in that
did, Harold.
Could you follow it?
I could follow it. I have some questions.
Good.
Okay?
Good.
First of all, what do you mean by multiple universes? I mean, we are in fact, my new business card, Harold.
Yes,
let me give it to you.
I know, it's good news.
No. Here's my business card.
Oh, let me
okay?
see. Let me see.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, that's
you ought to make it blue, brother. But okay, there it is.
Well, this is the shot by NASA. Yeah. So we live here or there or where. This is planet Earth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Now, when you say universe, and I might show my lack of knowledge, but I live next to the Museum of Natural History.
Yeah, isn't it great?
And I get to see
Carter Emmerich up there?
Yeah, I think I might have introduced you to him.
You introduced me to him. He's a great guy.
I love Carter. So up there now they have they have the planet Earth.
Yeah.
They have those other planets that are out there, and it's a gorgeous thing. So when you say the universe, is the universe is that part of all what we know or what we consider planets, or is the universe just planet Earth?
Oh no, we're in a solar. Well, no, but I mean that's common knowledge. The universe involves many galaxies, and it's far more than our solar system. Yeah, the very big picture that we have not been able to have available to us intellectually until just yesterday in terms of evolution. It took Copernicus and Galileo saying we were not the center of the universe. The universe is the whole of this context of things out, and it began, they now have it, they have a shockwave Wilkinson array, telescope array, where they have a picture about 5 or 6 years ago of the shockwave of the Big Bang that is now being able to be dated when this universe began. The universe,
right,
vast, galaxies, is 13.8 billion years ago. Whoa. This began. Then there was a movement out, and then there was one, and then one small solar system is the one we are, and we're the third planet of that solar system. And somehow, through an incredible permutation of the second of thermodynamics, of relationship gradient, energy gradients and so forth, this planet has gone for 4.5 billion years, the development of the Earth, and then 3.8, the first constituents of what was to become organic evolution. And from there, it's all evolution up to us, sitting here talking in this studio now, that can be understood. But the string theory, the mathematics of superstring theory, argue that this universe is very likely one of multiple universes within a harmonic, the mathematics argues that, a 10-dimension, and that it would be like smoke, as I understand it. Kaku's really good. Kaku is really good at taking the wonders of science as we begin to understand them and so forth, and then making them available to us, the citizens. I think that kind of role is really important so that people can understand it. But there would be like soap bubbles, ivory soap in a sink are connected, and they're connected through wormholes. And all of this, and the CERN thing, the thing at CERN in Geneva, which is having some difficulty now, but they are going to. They have a solar telescope array that they are going to, when they get that act together, and what would come out of from quantum mechanics way of seeing things, they are going to be able to get a picture of the shock wave of the creation of this universe within a nanosecond of its existence, 13.8 billion years ago. Now, that's an incredible capability of consciousness or knowing or understanding to take the measure of things, which has not been characteristic of any of the early creatures or the evolution up the hominoid line and so forth, so that there's a unique capability of humanity.
So what do we do with that?
Well, that gives you a reading on...
Let's use the last one, the Swedish taking that shot. What do we do with that information?
Not the Swedish.
Who did you say?
No, it's CERN. It's in Geneva. The accelerator.
The Swiss.
Well, it's not it's international. It's a huge consortium.
Right, but it's there. That physical.
An accelerator.
All right, that shot of that.
And then
what do we do with that bit of information?
Well, what it does is it gives us an understanding of the context within which we can take some measure of things in a comprehensive way. So you always want to go comprehensively, rather in a systems way of understanding things. You want to understand things at the most comprehensive level as possible. Einstein wanted to have a full unified field theory, rather than breaking it all down. But you want to understand things at a comprehensive level because that's the pattern within which you can set up the parameters of organization or understanding or taxonomy or Linnaeus taxonomy or understanding things down the line through the patterns that are subsumed within that larger context.
But doesn't it change as
absolutely
as you just said, a new ability to see here in Switzerland with that time it's more knowledge for man. So something 2 years from now is going to be still more knowledge.
Thank you very much. Yes.
So to utilize this information, one, we know that probably there's going to be some more information later, right?
Exactly. That's why, like Mr. Fuller, who he was, in my humble opinion, I don't know, you could go to others, there's, there are all kinds of Jay Forresters, all kinds of other systems thinkers and so forth, but I don't think there's any single person that was as so intellectually integral to understanding things than Fuller. And glad you studied him at a communications college in Fairfield and all that and everything, but he was really there. And he brought and made popular the term synergy. He would give talks to scientists, 1,000 people in the audience, and they would say, has anyone ever heard of the word synergy? Everybody's heard of energy, and no hands would go up. Now it's on the lips of every ad agency, because essentially it's the behavior of systems unpredicted by the sum of the parts. So you have an unpredictability built into it. Well, so what it does is it rules out, in a very real sense, any fundamentalism that might want to be proposed within the larger context. And so we're now at a point where we can, the Homo sapiens species, we're at a point now, as Mr. Asimov and others have argued, the defining generation, we're at a point of potentially annihilating in a massive unleashing of war making that is characteristic of all of history. Practically, it's all a matter of some political group gaining technological advantage so they can conquer somebody else, steal their grain, and so forth. And that's called realpolitik, and it's still operative at the level.
It's called potentially bad news.
That would be potentially bad news. But on the positive side is that we have transcended potentially. There's modeling for it. And it's only potential, and it's got nothing to do with the reality. I mean, it relates metaphysically or something, or not metaphysical. Avoid that. Avoid the spiritual things and the things that we've conjured through time to understand things like God and that sort of thing. It may be, it may not. There may be God, there may not be God. There may be this, there may be that. The thing is, it's a period of indeterminacy and choice and directions that can be taken. So it's a synergetic, and he would say that, and no hands would go up, and now it's on everybody's ad agency because it's the behavior systems, the behavior system unpredicted by this. There's something unpredicted. There's nothing absolute. So you got systems analysis of, say, institutions. Everything's institution embedded within other institutions. Everything's connected to everything else. The politics are connected to the education. Everything is connected, and it's a systems understanding of things that is given, and it's synergetic, and it's synergetic through time. And it's brought us to this time where we're either going to, it would seem, annihilate our species, or it's going to be liberated from a condition that James Joyce, who was a real reader of the evolution, the importance of technology, electricity, the thunders in the wake and that. He was a real reader of that. Like an artist, they sense things and everything. But or liberate humanity from the constrictions of the institutions, all of which were formulated within a condition of scarcity as a belief system, as eternal, to one where there is abundance. There is abundance, or you could open upon abundance, sufficiency and abundance for all, and the ecology, that simply has not been available to us throughout the human experience. It may be a moment of liberation, and that's felt very acutely. That existential challenge is felt very acutely, but most people are relating to the means of their own personal survival within the constraints of the institutional systems we've inherited out of history, including the nation state, the corporate structure, the economic thinking, the political structure, virtually everything. They're relating to it that way, and that's the news. And that is inadequate, and it should be the intellectuals who are providing vision of the alternative, and they're falling down on the job, which makes me negatively inclined on the synergistic thing of the opinion that they're probably, rather than liberate the human population and the ecology in a new order that would be comparable to punctuated equilibrium in evolution. You have steady state, and then it's like being in the womb. You're in steady state, and then there's an opening, or you leave the womb. You come into a new relationship to the cosmos. We may be coming to a new relationship to the cosmos up the evolutionary line if we liberate the whole of the system in a Gaia sense, but there doesn't seem to be much impetus toward that. And the odds are, Nick the Greek would probably say, we're probably going to blow it up rather than liberate, or take the steps to have liberation of the human society out of the nightmare that James Joyce called history.
So let me ask some thoughts here, okay? Because in my thinking, I try to be as practical as I humanly can be in my limited knowledge of life and its existence. One thing I know,
we're all limited.
One thing I do know is I would prefer not being blown up. Okay, so
Good
not
point.
Today, not tomorrow, and not the day after. Okay,
right.
So, and I happen to be aware of the possibility of some of the types of bombs that have been created, nuclear concerns. I've done many shows on this subject and involved in many ways, to stop that potential. So how do we, because I like to do a good news broadcast or a good news planet, our show is trying to deal with solutions.
Yeah.
Okay? That, I mean, we talk about an issue like nuclear arms, okay?
Not only nuclear, binary bacteriological.
Or chemical war,
yeah.
whatever.
The research goes on.
But what do we do?
Black ops research goes on in all these
my belief is peace, love, and harmony, and brotherly love of us Homo sapiens as the answer, and as possibly the only answer to deal with these, in essence, terrible, let's call them ammunitions, weapons of mass destruction, is peace, love, and harmony. Even the people that create
peace, love, and harmony.
Even the people that created them, I think Einstein said that if he knew what his atom bomb was going to be used for, he would have been a locksmith instead.
Yeah, but the genie's out of the bottle now.
And the Nobel Peace Prize, he invented dynamite. Another guy who now is giving awards to people. Okay, so. You know, I guess we are where we are right now in 2010, and we're coming up to a new year, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And there's millions of people trying to stop and deal with this concern, I believe, and from where we sit.
Where are they? Okay, people have been saying from Buddha to Jesus to Moses to all of the spiritual leaders, Lao Tzu, Confucian, all of the wisdom schools have been saying, peace, love, and generosity be true. Let's get along. They've been saying that all along, and they have been, I'm afraid, roundly ignored by the political leadership in all those areas. Every era, we don't know well pre-civilization. We were wandering 200,000 years. We were wandering, probably running from cats that would eat us. We were prey a good deal of the time, having developed few technologies and so forth. But then when the civilization started, there was always a few who ruled, and the people were enslaved, like Moses and company in Egypt.
I don't think anything's changed since the
or in Hammurabi's time. There was always a few who ran everything. The Roman Empire, you had a few who lived very well in that. 1,000 years after Rome fell, you had dynastic states, hereditary. Some king had won a battle 100 years ago, and so he became the king. He owned everything. And the serfs were most of the population. And like I've said, the duke who has a fiefdom or something within the realm of the king, who it's all hereditary, called legitimate, and so forth. The duke would lose the estate in a crap game with another duke, and there would be so much land, so many pigs, so many cows, so many chickens, and so many serfs would go with it. They just went with it. They were walling around in the mud of poverty, and grim, short lives, and so forth, and that kind of thing. And now we have the same thing as we come to the modern experience. It's been somewhat ameliorated, and so forth, through the steam engine and the Industrial Revolution, the Enlightenment, Scottish, and so forth. We get the United States of America, we get some things like that, and we're going, and now the concentration of wealth in the world economy is all held by a tiny plutocratic class in every political entity in the whole of the planet and the international order as well. There's a few people, descendants of the Fundi out of Europe and so forth, who own all the corporate assets and all the assets, and the people are essentially like serfs on their feudal estates. And it still continues. There's a few people, and those people that have that political and economic power do not have a vision adequate to letting those people who are under their control to be liberated. There's a possibility it would require a different way of organizing things, but there's no movement toward that. And if you bring up ever the idea, well, look, we may have transcended material scarcity, you're laughed out of the room. You're hopelessly naive. There never can be a transition to non-scarcity or of sufficiency for all. That cannot be by the nature of the universe or by human nature, all the things about human nature being villainous and so forth. So we're caught on the horns of the same dilemma of a universally unjust system in terms of involving everybody, much less the ecology.
So let me ask a question about sufficiency with that word. Are you saying, or let me see if I understand, are you saying we don't have the possibility of sufficiency in the sense of food, and shelter for every man/woman on planet Earth?
Well, that's an interesting thing, and what it is, and you make the distinction. You're not talking about the reality in the terms of so many houses and the way the way things are organized. You're talking about capability, first of all, when you talk about that. But when you're talking about abundance as opposed to scarcity, I mean, it isn't just like, say, food or a house or whatever, that material things like that. It's also, it would seem, in terms of the way universe is set up or something, that it's also knowledge and knowing and hard-won scientific understanding. Telescopes that measures the birth of the universe, things that give us knowledge in a way that can make it so that we can understand the scientific intellectual development of our species. We can understand things in a way. So the cultural things. It's not just the material things, but the material things are included in that we have the ability to do it. So that, for instance, no one need go hungry without food to eat when we have the capability. Even if it involves a mix of family farms and industrial, although I don't think they're going to allow those those industrial animal treatment is unhumane. There's changes, but you have a combine that can go across Kansas and create 10 billion barrels of wheat, and they don't need anybody driving the thing even. We've developed a capability to where Sudan could feed the world. Sudan, if you had an appropriate thing, the land, the resources, they were all there. But we have a capability to do, which we have not had.
Yes, mismanaged
because
planet.
No, it was a time thing. It's like when you're in the womb, you got 9 months trip. You're in the fallopian tube. You're in the 9 months. There's gestation. So we've been gestating for 200,000 years within what we call the Homo sapien consciousness, and we're going to come, and we're being tested. And are we going to be able to get to a point where we're going to be able to inform the whole system? The whole system, not the few, or not the benefit, or the way in which we've had to do. When there's not enough, let's just think about it for a minute. Let's say a woman's got 3 kids or something, and there's a trough there with some milk in it or something, and then there's 10 other kids, and there's not enough, not nearly enough. So by beating the other kid on the head to let her kid live, so that her kid can live and preserve. That's what it's been. They've had to say, which kid are they going to let starve? Or which kid are they going to, or in battle, which tribe are you going to wipe out and steal their grain so your tribe can eat and prosper? That's what it's been, fighting over scarcity. If there is enough, you see, they
mismanaged.
But do you ever hear anybody, anywhere, on any medium, say there has been a qualitative transformation at the level of capability since about the year 1970, and there is enough? Do you ever hear that said? If you bring that up, they will say you're hopelessly naive, you just don't understand, those bastards won't let us do it, this one won't let us do it. It is impossible. And they only let Galileo off the hook about 12 years ago for saying we weren't the center of the universe, because people got their identities all wrapped up in the outdated institutions by which they get a little something for their family or tribe.
But how? We know there's enough.
No, we don't know that. It's never said. Do you ever hear anybody say it?
I'm saying it right now.
No, you say it. No, I'm saying the political
I'm entitled to say it, and because I've heard it.
Well,
what do you mean?
No.
But it depends what we're
talking about. Do you ever hear
Fareed
Zakaria say it? Do you ever hear any of the people within the news say anything? Do you hear any of the political leadership say it in the State of the Union address? Do you hear any major intellectual institutions say it? That we have made a qualitative transformation at the level of capability, and its measure, and the pattern is there is enough, that we have transcended scarcity. If they did, they would be laughed off the podium by all the realpolitik people saying, you're hopelessly naive, there can never be enough, we got to keep fighting. I mean, do you ever hear anybody say it?
Have I heard people say there's enough food on planet Earth?
Not food. No. Okay. It's much more than food.
So food and shelter. Okay, but you were talking about
and it adds up to a pattern of qualitative transformation. When you get to this, you got to have something pretty big, existentially significant to the human condition. When you've got weapons, and I don't think there's any doubt that they were not species lethal in the Second World War. I was born. I was alive then. Okay? They were not. We were impotent at the level of being able to destroy us. We were trying. Understand what I'm saying? Okay. Full tilt boogie, firebomb Dresden, hate, really deep-seated hate and torture on both sides and all of that. And we were trying. We were impotent. We were gestating. That changed by about the year 1970. That process of turning it loose. Imagine Hitler and Tojo and everybody having the atomic weapons that we have now and so forth, or our class of leadership and everything doing it. Now if there was to be an unleashing, or now it's Iran, or now it's Israel with existential challenges that they feel and so forth. You got Pakistan, you got this, you got North Korea just coming up against. They're still juggling the same old thing, and there is nobody presenting any kind of an alternative on the positive side that is equally existentially significant as the destructive side. They're all seeing and projecting the destructive side and just saying, if our team wins, if they buckle under to us, we are legitimate. They are not. We are legitimate. They are not. We are legitimate. If we conquer, then we'll win. That's what they've been saying since Rome, is what I'm saying. There's nobody talking about it comprehensively, about the whole system and seeing it comprehensively, which should be the charge of the intellectual community, and they're falling down on the job. Where do you see somebody? Robert Wright talks some about that in Non-Zero. They talk some about it. It comes up every once in a while in an ad agency or something between two parts of a company or something. But there's nobody saying it comprehensively for the whole evolutionary process, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Do you understand?
Well, I understand, what you're saying. I mean, I'm a one-world person. I'm a believer in this.
What does that mean?
The world.
You believe in the world?
I believe we're all brothers and sisters on the planet Earth, period. I don't believe in the country establishment of taking in the fake borders that is not this. Mm-hmm. I believe that everybody all around us is my brother and sister, and that we should figure out a way as a community, mm-hmm. as if you want to go back to Asimov saying that this is that important year, that we should figure out in overall leadership on how to together do the positive things that are going to be helpful for society to continue on. I can't say I am also concerned about nuclear things.
Nuclear and more.
And chemical, or let's call them.
And those are held mostly.
And I support the fact of total and utter elimination of them.
You support the idea of eliminating them? Okay.
Yeah, yes, I do.
Yeah, he's trying to get the START Treaty through, and it's being held up on the thing about getting tax-rich. Republicans are holding up the START agreement that they're trying to do now.
They should just get rid of them all.
Well, they've gotten down from about 30,000, 40,000 down to about 7,000, 8,000 now on the side. And the main problem are a lot of loose nukes, and there was a thing in Russia sold a lot of those to China. China's emerging as the major superpower now, and the United States. But the main problem would be I don't think it would work, Paul. It would be limited, but it'd be the negative thing would be totally have nothing to do with rationality. It would be some irrational thing that would happen. It would be irrational. It wouldn't be rational. It can't be seen as rational that you unleash the weapons. And by that I mean, ultimately, it would be something that would be so chaotic, so monumental, that it would mean the unleashing of the weapons in the United States of American weapons systems would do it to make it species lethal. It would have to be us unleashing our weapons in a spasm of utter existential hatred and last chance. They got us, now we're going to get that kind of thing. What would lead to that? What might lead to that?
What might lead to that? I don't know I can't answer what
is it pointless
would lead
to think? It'll never happen.
No, I don't think it is pointless to think, because the fact is that if my understanding is to end the Cold War, we have bombs facing us, and we have bombs facing, say, the Soviet Union and Russia. So I believe to be so, which I learned, I think, is accurate information, 1,000+ bombs. And there's other places.
More than that.
Okay, so 1,800, 12, whatever the heck it is, and they're old.
It's enough.
It's enough to make a bad day.
No, it's enough to. It's still now. Okay, It used to be high. It peaked around
Whatever
1970.
it is, one is too many.
Well, no, that's too simplistic. If I may, but it reached its peak around 1970, right at that time. And again, I would submit that in the fullness of time, if we make it, 1970 is going to be seen as year one. That's going to be seen as year one, the beginning of the synergetic era. And that's something that nobody can grasp or anything because they just think history. But anyway, that's another thing. But it reached that point, and then there's been some agreements. Reagan and that, they made a START agreement. They made the limited test ban and all that kind of stuff. And so now they've made these things to deal with it. Soviet Union imploded. So that was the big bugaboo that we were fighting, the Reds and the Soviet Union and Russia.
So do we still have bombs
China.
facing us? No.
The question is, at a systems level, are they still species lethal? I mean, is it okay now that we've won? End of history, Mr. Fukuyama. Now that the good guys, the capitalists, the imperialists have won, the West, the Enlightenment, and all the things where we celebrate our values and with triumphalism and so forth, now that we're in charge and have complete control over everybody else, that means that everything's okay and that there's not a threat at that species level or not. That's something that ought to be made available. What's the reality of the modeling? I think the reality of the modeling, it remains species lethal because they're developing. And remember, the major research that the political entities want is to get an advantage, a technological war-making advantage over the others so they can dominate them. That's the major thrust of the economic development.
In my old country, they call those the Meshuggahs. So we don't want to waste our time with the Meshuggahs.
They are the leaders.
They're not leaders. What kind of a leader?
They're
not leaders. What's a leader that's going to bomb somebody else because they can't discuss and they're wimps?
No, well, you could say
wimps.
that. That's
they're plain old wimps.
No, the political
They're immature,
leader.
Whoever can't have a communications of brotherhood and sisterhood is a wimp and has to result in murder and killing people is a wimp.
That's practically the history of the world, Paul.
All right, so nothing wrong. So it is a history.
Yeah,
there's always been a bully since day one, since there's always been one bully.
And the bullies have been the leaders.
And
the leaders, what made a person a leader?
No bully is ever the leader. A bully is people
No, you're talking
afraid.
Philosophical or...
I'm talking reality.
No, you're not. You're not.
I'm talking, you people are afraid, so he's not a leader. A leader doesn't bully. A leader is your brother. A leader is somebody you respect. That's the word, in my mind, what a leader means. A leader is somebody to admire. A leader is somebody to love. A leader is somebody to care about.
It's a definition of terms, I guess. What I'm talking about is the political, like the Pharaoh who enslaved the Jews. I mean, it's been that, or the kings and the order, or now.
Oh, well, depends on what kind of king he was, or she was.
Okay, but...
There's good and bad, and I think that the people don't need to know much more than good and bad.
Well, good and bad, that's a simplistic way of seeing it, and it might be true, you see it black and white, but I think that's a little too simple because they're nuanced, of course, but mostly like the Medici support, even Da Vinci was a great creative, cultural person and everything, but the thing that they wanted were siege machines that gave them advantage. What the political leader needs is advantage. You want a Gatling gun, now listen, they want a Gatling gun, so that they and the other tribe only has a rifle. So with the Gatling gun, you can overwhelm them, have firepower, conquer them, steal their grain, take their grain, co-opt them.
But this is the show.
That's been our leaders. That's been our leaders.
Of what? What, a leader of
there was called
imaginary
Roosevelt led a war,
but it's imaginary
Churchill
border.
led a war, Hitler led a war, Stalin led a war, Mao sent a war, and it's all been a matter of having technological advantage to where you can cow or overcome the other. That's the history, and that's called realpolitik.
Yeah, but it's stupidity.
No, but that's what you're saying.
Do you think somebody's had to die because of the stupidity there?
They have endlessly. 4 million in Vietnam.
Well, stop.
The leaders went and dropped napalm on little children.
Stop.
Of the United States of America.
It's pathetic.
And so we finally got to it. So what do you mean? They were our leaders. The president is the leader.
So
you're trying to say, and the presidents have made wars on all sides. And everybody says, we're good, they're bad. And they inculcate, and they use the television.
They separated our brotherhood and sisterhood.
And they use the communications network in order to manipulate the population into war frenzy against the evil enemy, like George Orwell used to say.
So let's stop it. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. Let's not. There is no you and me. There is no you country, my country. It is one planet Earth. Period. Mm-hmm. You can't refute. No one in the world can refute to me that it's not one planet Earth. I mean, unless you think there's more than one right in this picture.
Well, sovereignty is still at the nation-state level. They're having a hell of a time keeping the lights on at the United Nations, trying to get some sort of an international order that had something over the sovereignty of the superpowers. The veto still resides in the Security Council. All of the dictates by which the powerful, I mean, if the powerful have power and so forth, then they form alliances, they have meetings in 12-star hotels, they run the world, they have all the money, they have all the assets, and they own everything, and they own, and the ability to garner armies. They have masses of wage slaves, people within their economic system to serve their interests, and that's the way the world is organized now. You have some things, you have Gaia. I think John Lovelock is good. I think Lynn Margulis's work in biology, there's things going. I think Kaku is very good, they're doing it. But in order to have something different, Paul, is it just good to say, like the wisdom schools have said, let's be nice? Why should we be nice when we never have? And they will say, we can't be nice because if we let down our guard, the other people will come and hit us on the head. And realize the people that got to be in the position of leadership got to be there, and they'll have a reading of human nature. They have readings of what human nature is by unmutable laws of physics or something, is greedy and selfish. Yeah. That's what they do. And realize the people who got to be in position of leadership had to be greedy and selfish to get there. So they assume everybody is that way. So that if they think somebody is generous and thoughtful of somebody else, empathetic, loving, any of that, those people are just simple suckers to be manipulated by those who have been greedy. And they know everybody's greedy because they are. Did you ever think of that? That's how they got to be there.
You know, everybody can they do what they do, and I can only do what I do. But the point of the matter is, I'm pulling for the acceptance of us all working together, and I believe that in my time, okay, I'll just speak for myself, that this worldwide brotherhood and sisterhood and letting down our arms will come to fruition, because I have to make it come to fruition myself, speaking for myself, because I have grandkids. And so I can't play games here. And Good News Planet and what I'm doing is my step to help to show the goodness of humanity. Okay,
well, good. Okay.
So, of which I believe in. And I believe we're all going to get much further through the love and peace and harmony of which we are, and most of the world's at peace anyway. And that's a whole nother conversation. But I believe that as well.
I don't think that's characteristic of history. There's very few periods when there's been
history
peace.
Is past. You know, the history is past. The future is a mystery. What do they say? And today's the present. Okay. So I like presents. I like to give presents. I like to get presents.
You give good parties.
And I like to have parties because today is the day. And today is the first day of the rest of your life, or it could be the last day of the rest of your life, depending on how you look at life, or you have another life after this. Whatever you want. It's all, you know, it's very simple. But I wanted to say that the web, I think that the web, I'm going to tout the web.
Oh, absolutely.
You also said that there's going to be Communications Week on the Harold Channer Show here, and Conversations with Harold. And, you know, it's very often a matter of lack of communications, a lack of conversations. I love your title.
Conversations?
You know, at least hearing people's opinion of situations worldwide. I'm not saying what I'm thinking is the right way, the wrong way. Let's have a unanimous opinion of the world, of how to run the world in a better way. That's all. And I think it can be done. And I think that maybe, hopefully, the web can be helpful to everybody's access to something like that, which seems to be a little bit easier than some of the other forms of communications in the past. And maybe we can come up with some solutions worldwide on how we want to run this planet so everybody's grandkids and friends and family can live a lot longer, and we can just try to eradicate the diseases that are that we have to live under, the cancers and this, that problem and that. Those are the real problems. This other stuff is a waste of time. What are we wasting our time beating each other up for?
Okay.
It makes no sense. It's just a waste of time.
Well, that's very good. I agree with you. It'd be like John Lennon, God bless him, Yoko Ono. They did their billions.
That.
John Lennon was so good. They imagined there's no countries. It's easy if you can. No religions too. That's a kind of biggie. That's going to upset a number of people.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is,
interfaith minister.
Yeah, right. If
a spiritual guy.
We want to get to that. We got another hour. We're going to talk about communication and that's all very good because it's all fitting in. Those are all extensions of consciousness. But don't you think it might be that? I mean, I can understand these are the statements and the thoughts of virtually every single one of our wisdom leaders from the past. From Jesus to Buddha. Everyone has said this. Everyone says it. John Lennon says it, and so forth. But do you think it might be incumbent upon those who want that to be able to be emerging, to be able to present in some context, intellectually, why that can happen now when, on the whole, and in terms of the leadership that got us here, political leadership, things have changed in a material way from history, which has not been able, only indirectly living up to those principles that the wisdom school people advanced, their love, generosity, all of that. But the leading edge of what created the institutional structures and so forth were these other forces, and that they present to the whole of humanity in a way that what has changed. Is there something different than history? Are we coming to the point where the water has, maybe the water, in the metaphor of pregnancy, the water's broken. The water breaks. And we're coming to a time, we have signals, there's something. And the one would be this idea of transcending scarcity. Why is it never mentioned? That's the point. Why is it? There's been a qualitative transformation that will affect every institution. If the one mother has to decide which child she's going to let starve to death because there's not enough food for two, only enough for one, that's a condition that can't be. And then let's say there's enough for five.
There is enough food.
No, food is a metaphor. What I'm saying, the whole thing.
There's enough of everything for everybody.
No, but it's never mentioned by any of our leadership.
We're mentioning it right now.
It's never, by you and I, that's one thing.
Well, that's a beginning. And it's not a beginning because there's millions of people that
believe that. But what I'm
that.
talking about is the falling down. Where they go back into patterns of, let's say, the Democrats are all exercised because the Republicans gave a tax break to the super rich and they can't stand it anymore, and it's becoming that way. And it's politics in the small scale rather than thinking. There's nobody taking the measure of things in a large, comprehensive way. Is what is, and that if you have that, like we said, we want to understand the beginning of the universe and everything, and the evolution and knowledge and understanding. Every day a revolution comes over the transom from one field of science. It's amazing. It's exponentially increasing. Why are we not ever taking the measure of things comprehensively? Are we all off in our tunnel vision thoughts about the little thing we're interested in, each of us and so forth, and they're taking the measure of everything like Fuller did and others have, to the overall pattern of the overall assumption, which will call into question the assumptions of nature of things that was characteristic of the institutions we've inherited out of history, like, say, education. Education is falling down on the job. All of the justice system is falling down on the job. The political system is falling down on the job. The economic system is falling down on the job because we're all reifying and seeing things and giving great credence to the systems we've inherited and the institutions and the assumptions that we've inherited out of history that has been transformed at the level of capability, and nobody ever brings up the utter capability that is part of the reality at a level just one little step above normal material reality, and nobody brings it up ever in any discussion anywhere in the media or in the institutions or in the thought leading journals or anywhere, that there's been a qualitative transformation that should be taken into account in terms of assigning. Nietzsche said the future affects the present as much as the past. Why do we have real thoughtful,
we should.
authoritative readings of the capability and presenting that as a reality within intellectual circles rather than just going along with the bumblings of our inherited institutions headed up by people who are tunnel visioned into their own set of prejudices and so forth coming out of history that are out of date and are going to lead us over the edge of the precipice if we don't have vision. They don't have vision of a transformation that allows this change that you would like to see made, which has not been characteristic of all of human history, is what I'm saying.
Well, you know, it's a lot of things have occurred, as you've noted, in history that have evolved to get us to where we are.
That's right, and it all has to be subsumed.
Me personally, expect a massive change to occur within a couple weeks or two, even though it probably could.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Like,
all right. It probably
punctuated
could.
equilibrium happens all at once.
It could be, you know, if the world, in my mind, my little theories, is that we will need maybe 20 years to figure this out. But, and then on the 20th year, some things would change. And within the 20 years, we have a big discussion, a big web discussion, or whatever it is, and we have some kind of vote on how we'd like to conduct the usage of Mother Earth, or as the Native American Indians say, this place that we have borrowed, and how we want to, as Homo sapien brothers and sisters, we want to conduct our lives. All of those. And do we want to change what is? Or, you know, I'm not saying, a lot of people don't. You know, maybe, you know, well, a lot of people by far, you know, when, you know, I heard when communism broke down, a lot of people didn't want it. They were very happy with the way the system was.
That's right.
And, you know, people.
It's called conservative.
It's called the way of life.
Yeah.
It's called, everything's
and people
okay.
get their identity.
And you get used to a way of life.
And they get comfortable in it, some do.
And of course, that's a big deal because, you know, everybody, so if you did dissolve, okay, if you did dissolve all the countries of the world, say just as a talking conversation here, right, okay, so, you know, your way of life would more than likely change. You know, I'm not saying get rid of cultures, but say things would change.
Yeah,
okay?
Right.
Because we would all, first of all, there would be no worries about immigration, there'd be no fences.
Right.
It would be whatever, or maybe there is, depends on what the world wants.
Okay, well, you're bringing up very important things.
It's conversation worthy, if in your mindset, and the way you're speaking about the you know, intellectuals of looking at the bigger picture, so you can look and now see the small picture. So the bigger picture is what's here today.
Okay, that's very good. And one of the things is in time, and I don't think we got 20 years for. I think we'll blow it up before then. We have to get it together. We have to get it together now.
Unfortunately,
and that's what I think. But anyway, we're talking with Paul Sladkus, and we're going to do a whole nother hour, and we're going to get around to things like television and education and multimedia. But we're talking with him now. And we're going to have to say goodbye for this thing. Paul, good to talk to you.
My pleasure.
We ask you to stay tuned. That is, we're going to tape another program right after this as soon as we get the things in order. And that's going to air the day after this program airs. We're going to go into some of the communications, because we're trying to deal with communications, particularly education, means of reaching consciousness around the world, which is part maybe of how we could get to the world that you and I both would like to see. Thank you for viewing. It's your pleasure. Paul Sladkus, a really good guy. Good News Planet. He's going to rebrand the company and so forth. He's been at it 25, 30 years in NBC or CBS and all over. And Paul, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Harold.
And we ask you to stay tuned. We'll be coming back with tomorrow, which will be a continuation of this conversation. Okay, thanks, Paul.
Thanks, my friend.
Okay, well, we're going to take a break now.
Okay, Harold.